The Gilded Age was a time of great social change and economic growth in the United States. During the Gilded Age, urbanization was a direct result of the Industrial Revolution. Millions of unskilled immigrants had traveled to America seeking prosperity and wealth, but unfortunately this was not the case. Urbanization played an important role in the Gilded Age. There were a few philosophies that people lived by throughout this time period. Two completely different beliefs had shown up. In the late 1800s, the Puritans had a strong sense of work ethic. They believed that God wanted you to work hard, and if you met His standard, you would have a healthy and prosperous life. If you hadn't, then you wouldn't be worthy of having a good life. A man by the name of Max Webster was given credit for molding the Puritans into whom they were. They lived by the idea that hard work was a person's calling and success was a result of personal salvation. Puritanism brought the community together and strengthened work ethic. Another philosophy of urbanization was the social gospel. In this belief, even if you hadn't worked hard and you lived a poor life, you could still be helped and have a pretty decent life. Everyone was entitled, regardless of their religion. In the social gospel, Protestant clergymen highlighted the role of man and urged for government action and social reforms. Social gospel had direct effect on settlement houses. A woman by the name of Jane Addams served an important role in urbanization, creating settlement houses. An idea that originated in London, settlement houses helped the desperate and poor. They did this by creating a center for higher civic and social life. The settlement houses also helped to maintain education and improve industrial district living conditions. Jane Addams and one of her friends rented a mansion in 1889. The mansion once belonged to Charles Hull. They had hoped that Hull House would bring some light into these people's lives. One of the first things they did was set up a daycare center for small children. Mothers who worked all day had no way to take care of their children, so they would tie their young children to a table leg and leave them in the tenement while they went off to work. Older children worked or just roamed the streets. The daycare center provided children a small, safe environment and at least one meal a day. Rewarded for all her hard work, Jane Addams had received the Nobel Peace Prize. There were some negative effects to urbanization. Housing was one of the major issues in urbanization. When immigrants came to America, they were looking to become wealthy, but because many were unskilled and poor, they had to live in slums. Slums are thickly populated, run-down parts of the city inhabited by the poor. Usually a whole family lived in one room and shared one bathroom. Slums were poorly ventilated, poorly lit, and too filthy for even rats to live in. Because of the slums, health became a big issue in urbanization as well. Disease spread due to the lack of sanitation. People lived in close proximity to each other. The disease cholera spread through the dirty water in cities. It is a serious infectious disease which infects the intestinal system of the body. Cholera spread easily, and because most of the people living in slums couldn't afford treatment, many had died from it. Working conditions during urbanization were terrible. Children were put to work in factories. The children went to work to make money for their families who lived in the slums. It was a national disgrace during the Gilded Age. The lucky ones swept the trash and filth from the streets or just stood for hours hawking newspapers. The less fortunate worked 10-hour shifts in dark, damp coal mines. Child labor was an ugly task force. Many of the children were abused and exploited. They worked long hours and were paid very little, and by 1911, more than 2 million American children under the age of 15 were working. Political machines became very popular during this time period. More specifically, Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall was an organization based in New York City which became famous for the extent of its political corruption. The leader, a man by the name of William Boss Tweed, was a tyrannical man who demanded payoffs from businesses. He lined his pockets with millions of dollars. He had maintained and increased his powers by rewarding his supporters. Tweed fled the country, but he was eventually prosecuted and died in prison. Even after the fall of Boss Tweed, the organization had still been active till the 1960s. There were also a few positive effects of urbanization in the Gilded Age. Urbanization introduced new technologies such as elevators, skyscrapers, streetlights, and water and sewage systems. Factories were producing more than Great Britain, Germany, and France. Factories, railroads, and coal mining became very important. Railroads provided new means of transportation and created more jobs. Theodore Vail established the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, otherwise known as AT&T. Urbanization also had cultural benefits, establishing a new lifestyle. The upper class grew, the luxurious lifestyle was created, and the United States became a cultural melting pot. There was also a great increase in recreational activities such as museums, theaters, parks, and libraries. The Gilded Age had plenty of positive and negative effects, but however you look at it, it shaped the way America runs this very day.